A surge in immigration to Canada has sparked a debate of whether this country can handle all of those new people in the midst of a housing crisis. Well, a new report from Desjardins aims to explore exactly that, taking a look at the impacts on Canada's employment, GDP, and, of course, the housing market to evaluate where policymakers may find their answer. Joining us now for more on his findings is Randall Bartlett, Senior Director of Canadian Economics with Desjardins. Randall, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Jacqueline.
So a really interesting report. You're not trying to, for yourself, pinpoint the number of newcomers that we should be welcoming in this country, but you're looking at some of the factors that should be considered when you're considering the benefits or perhaps the negatives when it comes to welcoming people.
That's it. So what we tried to look at in this report was very much taking a look at the short-term economic implications, the longer-term economic implications of immigration, and trying to identify what are sort of the upsides and the downsides of higher immigration in Canada. And certainly in the near term, we identified things like higher immigration are helping to address labor market shortages in Canada, and you can see that in terms of the fact that we're seeing the job vacancy rate, which is still very high, coming down, but the unemployment rate remains near historic lows. But at the same time, housing affordability continues to erode, and the housing market very quickly found a bottom, and despite high interest rates, and is coming back. And so in the near term, we are seeing some of the push and pull that higher immigration is having on the economy. But in the long term, we need still elevated immigration to offset the drag from aging on the economy and the impact it's going to have on provincial fiscal finances as a result of rising healthcare costs.
So let's go through a little bit of, the digging that you did into this. And part of it was, who's coming to this country and a bit of why. And you found that there's far more permanent residents that are coming to Canada right now than previously. We've got a graph showing that as well from your report. Can you give us a sense of, why you thought that was significant?
Yeah, so if you look at the last year, really what's been driving the outsized increase in the population in Canada has been non-permanent residents that have been coming to Canada for a couple of reasons, some of which are to fill jobs on a short-term basis, so people who are part of the temporary foreign worker program, for example, or young people who are coming here as students to become educated and providing both financial support to post-secondary institutions in Canada, but ultimately also helping to support the labor market and hopefully settle here and start contributing to the economy here as well. And so it's really those non-permanent residents that stand out as being well above what we've seen at any time historically in terms of contributing to population growth in Canada, whereas immigration continues to be elevated, but certainly not nearly as outsized relative to history as we're seeing in terms of non-permanent residents.
I think I really confidently said permanent residents, and I meant to say non-permanent in my question to you there, Randall. This also tends to be a younger group of people that are coming as well. So when you talk about helping with, balancing out the aging population, this seems like an important contributor.
No, absolutely. I mean, part of what we did in this analysis was to really unpack what the age distribution is of both permanent and non-permanent residents and get a sense of, okay, well, how likely are these folks to be employed? And so as a result, how likely are they to start contributing to Canadian economic activity very quickly? And in the case of non-permanent residents, those folks who are coming in through the temporary foreign worker program are coming in at the request of employers who are telling the federal government that we can't find people to satisfy this short-term demand for labor that we have. And so they're bringing people in through this program. And so those folks are becoming employed right away. When you look at the immigration streams and economic immigrants in particular, they're also funding jobs very, very quickly. And those are folks that are coming in who are well-educated, well-connected internationally, speak English, French, or both, and are people who are very quickly finding jobs and opportunities. And this is something that's not just a post-pandemic phenomenon. This is something in terms of economic immigrants that we saw change changed dramatically starting in about 2015 and has continued to outpace the economic or labor market performance of workers who are born in Canada. So certainly it's been a huge sea change in terms of the economic outcomes for economic immigrants.
We were just showing one of your graphs with your projections for the old age dependency ratio. And I think it could use a little bit of explaining in terms of what it is and how you see it potentially playing out over these next few years.
Yeah, so the old age dependency ratio is a ratio of Canadians 65 and over to those 15 to 64. And so what we tried to do is get a sense of, okay, if we wanted to stabilize the old age dependency ratio, so it's been rising over the years, but if we wanted to stabilize it, what would it take in terms of growth in the working age population, so those folks 15 to 64 to get there? And so through 2040, we estimated that on average annually, growth in the working age population would need to be 2.2% annually to stabilize the old age dependency ratio. Now, this is because Canada's population is aging rapidly, and the baby boomers, didn't have enough kids to replace them. So we have this big demographic bubble that we're dealing with, and those are folks that are retiring, and so that's we would need a hefty pace of growth in the working age population to get there. Most of that's, if not all of that, is going to be coming from immigration, as folks retiring are going to be retiring more quickly than entering the labor force organically. And so we need to have elevated levels of immigration just to stabilize the old age dependency ratio, let alone actually start bringing it back down to levels that we saw in, say, the 1990s or 2000s.
I mentioned the housing concern off the top, Randall. You've also got a graph about home prices and the impact of stronger immigration on home prices, and we'll bring that one up as well. But with the housing stock that we have, and the need that you've outlined for more people to be part of Canada's economy, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, well, immigration to some extent is a bit of a double-edged sword, in that the Bank of Canada has talked a lot about this, that, you bring folks in and they both add to supply, but they also add to demand. And in some cases, there's a bit of a demand-supply mismatch within the economy. And so while we need to bring in immigrants to satisfy short-term labor market demands, as well as longer-term needs related to aging, at the same time, because we can't bring on the supply of housing as quickly as that demand is ratcheting up, it's causing the Canadian housing market to stabilize, and we expect it to continue to rebound going forward. But also, I mean, it's eroding housing affordability just generally. And so this is something that I think all policymakers need to really start to take into account in immigration policy, just because of the fact that housing supply in Canada is clearly constrained. And, unlike in the 1970s, when we ramped up housing construction significantly as the boomers came of age and started their own families, we're just not that same sort of push toward building substantial amounts of housing in Canada is just not happening at this point.